Hey, Kiki.
Hey, Jen.
So glad to have you here today. You guys, this is KiKi L'Italien. If you don't know her, she is the founder of a really cool thing called Association Chat. And she's going to tell us about that and also talk about how we can create a habit forming brand. So, with that, Kiki, I'm just going to hand it right off to you.
All right. Yay. I am so glad to be here. Okay, so I have to let everyone know that she is someone who I so admire, and Jen did not know I was going to do this, but I first came across her through her flash briefing. And ever since then, it's been like magic. And so community is such a big, important thing to me that seeing what she does with Front Row has been just so inspiring. So I love you, Jen. Yay. Okay. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about how to create a habit forming brand because so often we get all excited about all of these different things that we can do where we're looking at, are we going to create a challenge? Are we going to create a newsletter? Are we going to create, revamp our websites? And we forget about that really critical piece that we're having to get into people's minds, their thoughts, their hearts over and over again. So even if we make it past the hurdle the first time, that is it's not a given that we're just going to continue to be successful in reaching them over and over again, unless we start thinking about, while we're doing all of these wonderful things, start thinking about how we can make our brand, our community, our products, something that can be habit forming. Now, why is this important? I'm going to share my screen and hopefully it goes extremely well, but bear with me right now. Okay, I'm allowing it and yay.
Do not stress. It will. Oh, whoops. Whoops. We lost her. Okay, she'll be back. Kiki is a pro. I do not worry. So we're just going to wait here for her to come back. And so those of you who aren't familiar with Kiki, she has this incredible brand she's created called Association Chat. And she's got a huge community, and it's all about marketing for associations. And so she's interviewed all the biggest names out there, Seth Godin, everybody. Like, this woman really knows her stuff. So I'm going to see if she's messaging me by chance right now. And I am going to send her a message. Let's see here. I'm going to message her. There she is. Okay.
I
I told
broke
her,
it. I broke it.
I said, I'm not worried about her. She's a pro. She'll be back
Yep.
shortly. Okay. So share you were experimenting with the share your screen.
Yes.
So you want to give that a shot while I'm here on camera with you, and I'll help you.
Yep. Let me go ahead. Should be fine.
There
Are
it
you
is.
seeing it? Yes. I think
We're going to do
I think
that.
I can you see it all right?
Yeah. Wow. What a gorgeous picture too.
Oh,
Woohoo.
thank you. That is a photographer named Mary Gardella, and if you are ever in Baltimore, you should definitely contact her, you guys. Okay, so thank you so much. I'm going back into why we need to talk about why you need to create a habit forming brand to keep your customers coming back. And when I talk about customers, I'm talking about members or users, or any time you have somebody that your audience that you're regularly reaching out to, that's who you're wanting to reach. So, okay, what we're going to cover in this is why you want to make your brand a habit. I'm going to go over 3 ways that you can do it. There are more ways that we can talk about, but these are some pretty much the top 3 ways you can do it and the next steps for you. But I do want to give credit to Nir Eyal. Nir Eyal is the author who's in this photograph with me. I had a wonderful chance to interview him recently. He wrote the book Hooked, and he wrote the book Indistractable. Both are, I would highly, highly recommend you check them out if you're interested in any of what I'm talking about today. And he is an expert in behavior psychology, wrote the book hooked, which if you have any kind of app or anything like that, you'll know the hook model, or you should know the hook model. He created it. And this is kind of based on that, but I'm applying it to brands because I think that we can use a lot of the ideas that he talks about in his books to apply them to our communication, our marketing, and to our brands in general. So want to give a lot of credit to him. I also, by the way, have a link at the end of this where you can check out his website because he gives great advice constantly, much like our friend Jen. And so you should definitely sign up for his mailing list. So the direct benefits are that you will be able to, through creating a habit forming brand, you'll be able to increase your customers' lifetime value because they'll be coming back. This is not one of those one and done kind of things. They're going to be coming back. They're going to be building brand loyalty, and that will in turn give you a greater competitive edge because it is so noisy out there. It's only getting noisier. And when people have found the thing that scratches that itch that they have, they're not looking for another solution most of the time. So you want to get in there, you want to create that loyalty, you want to create that relationship so that you can then be able to have that ongoing relationship, keep them for the lifetime of your brand, and be able to see the rewards from that. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is the cue. In Nir Eyal speak, if you are familiar with his work, he refers to this as the trigger. I think that the trigger is a good one when you're trying to think of what is that thing that's going to make people think and act on almost on instinct. But I call it the cue because not only do we have some associations with the word trigger these days that can be negative, but also the cue is also like it's a visual cue oftentimes. It's something that will remind you of what it is that you need to do. So when you're reading things like Atomic Habits by James Clear is another great book, you'll learn that there are cues that you can put in your eyesight, in your vision, in your mind, that whenever you do one thing, it makes you think of another. So I use the word cue here because that's really what we're trying to do. We might be able to get people to click once, but can we get them to click more than once? And that's part of this, right? So the more someone visits your website or reads your emails or listens to your podcast, the more that they are hopefully going to be investing in your brand and building up that loyalty. And so we talked about how, you know, there's the click here or the buy now or the buttons that we see that remind us. But this can also be things like paid advertising or the invitation to join a game from a friend. And we're going to talk about the different visual cues that you have that can, and not just visual, by the way, they can also be things that are built off of behaviors. But here are the different types of cues. We have paid, we have earned. Does this sound familiar to anybody that owned? But we have relationship and we have owned. And I have a little asterisk by owned today because the reason why is it's your owned cues that can inspire loyalty. The paid, the earned, and the relationship type cues are the ones that can bring in new people, new visitors, but it's the owned cues or owned triggers that are already part of your current users, members, list members, customers environment by their choice. So I put a little asterisk next to that because these are for the way you think about the people who are already part of your tribe. So with paid, we're talking about obviously the things you pay for. You know, you're paying for your advertising, you're paying for your search engine marketing. How am I getting in front of people? How, you know, what can I do where I'm putting out my dollars so that I can get in front of my ideal audience? For the earned, these are the ones you can't buy directly, but they still generate the exposure. And you can think about press and speaking gigs like this. And for relationships, these are cues that are generated by referrals. So you might already have relationships with the people who are bringing in those types, triggering those types of responses. This looks like word of mouth, or WOM, the WOM. And then with your owned. And owned, I treasure this so much, because so many of us, through different courses and advice, if you're part of, you're part of Jen's group, that you can go in and you can learn how to build your mailing list and all kinds of things. Once you have people who are circulating in your environment, who are part of your list, who are part of your tribe, then what can you do with them? This is where you've already had people opt in. So they are like gold, and you want to treat them well, and you want to be able to think about how can we build on people who have already opted in, because they've gotten over the hardest hurdle of all. So when we're talking about owned cues or owned triggers, we're talking about those cues that are part of your user's environment by their choice. They already have the app icon on their phone. They receive your emailed newsletter, and this is because they've chosen to receive it. And so when we're building off of those cues, then we know that they've already chosen in the beginning to be a part of that. So that's an important differentiation between that one and the rest. So how do you decide on a cue? And remember, this is all part of a bigger discussion, which is how to make it a habit. So we're trying to make it a habit so that people will continuously come back to your brand. One of the first ways that you can do this is to explore and brainstorm ideas on how you might bring these people in. So you think about these different types of cues, and we'll go back really fast. Paid, earned, relationship, or owned cues. What are the ones that you want to work off of? So you might think, and I do this, I think about, how do I want to reach new people, and how do I want to reach the people I already have as part of my community, as part of my group? So I would, because I already have a large community, I would separate my paid, earned, and relationship type cues and my owned as I'm thinking about it, knowing that there are different types of things that I can do with my owned cues than what I can do with my paid, earned, and relationship cues. I don't want to get stuck in the jargon. What I want to do is I really want to think about, for us to think about, how can we do the best we can to reach people and compel them to come back again and again. So as we look at step one of our identification of cues, we're brainstorming how we might use these to bring our users in. So if you were to advertise offline, where would be the best place to do it? These are the types of questions you want to ask yourself. If you were to give a speech, who would be the ideal audience? A lot of us can get caught up in trying to build our brand, and it's good. We get caught up in, more exposure is great. And we want to get our name out there, and we want to get that we're subject matter experts out there, and we'll speak to anybody, right? We'll go out in the beginning and we'll do lots of free gigs, and we'll go and we'll talk to all kinds of audiences, and that's good for a different reason. But when you are strapped for time and you have to prioritize and make a decision about where to go, it's times like that when you need to think about, okay, what is going to be the most effective way to reach my ideal audience and encourage them to be a part of my community? And that's when you want to get really specific about reminding yourself, is this the type of person, are these the type of people who would engage with my product, would buy into my brand? Is this my ideal avatar or customer? Is this the type of, is this a person who is like other people in my tribe? And that's how you can help to decide and determine if that's a direction you want to go in. When you're thinking about these cues, you're thinking about where can I find the people? Is this a type of content? Is this a type of channel that is going to reach them? What's going to be the most effective? And right now, this is exploring, this is brainstorming. In step 2, we're prioritizing. So you've made your list and you've decided, okay, I've got a couple of ways in my paid or earned, I've got a couple speaking gigs that I could line up for the right audience. I have, say I have put up I have identified my Facebook ads that I want to put out. I know where who I want to reach and what I want to reach them with. And I also know for my owned groups, for my owned content, what it is that I'm wanting to do where I can entice them to engage with my brand. And we are going to go into examples, so don't worry about that. And so then you want to prioritize them. Which of your methods would likely work best? There's this really great advice that I ran into, and I can't remember, unfortunately, who gave it. I think it was, oh gosh, I think it was Laura Belgray, who does the copywriting for Marie Forleo. But anyway, it was advice that said this. Basically, whenever you're thinking of headlines, you want to think of at least 25, never fewer than 25 headlines, because it really does take that many to come up with the best ideas. But you want to allow yourself to have the crazy ideas, the dumb ideas, the trash ideas, everything, so that you can get to something that you wouldn't otherwise. So it's this constant expansion and then, becoming more focused and retracting back onto something that is a more focused answer. This is that contracting back. You've expanded, you've brainstormed, and now you're going back into prioritizing which of these methods would work best. So which of those cues that you came up with seem most promising right now? Which of them seem like they could potentially work? And which ones seem like they're worth exploring, but only after you've already taken care of some stuff that would be really successful? And you want to prioritize through your list of cues on what you want to try to explore. All right. And then, of course, we go to testing, because if we don't test, we don't know. We don't know what's working. And so you go into testing your method, and that would be looking at, asking questions like, how much does this actually cost? Which reminds me, just so that I can use a point of reference that everyone on here probably is familiar with, Jen trying out the direct mail stuff, like, how much does it cost to acquire customers with this method? How much does it cost to reach my core audience? What comes out of it? Is it really working? How many customers are available with this cue? Are the customers that respond the ones that you want right now? Is it really that you're trying to reach somebody else? I mean, all of us have different people who are circulating in our audience or in our user base. We have those members who are more active and more highly engaged, and we have those who are kind of on the periphery and maybe not totally bought in. And we have those that we know are 100% probably going to, not 100, I guess 100% probably, 100% going to invest in whatever it is, our program, our, new thing that we want to try. They're going to be on board. They're going to say, heck yeah, we're going to join on and do our, join this with you. But what about the rest? So are they the right customers that are responding that you want right now? And then we move on to the repeat. Now, what I want to do right now is I want to talk a little bit about, oh, you can see me the whole time. That's awesome. Yay. Oh, I am in the show. It's so awesome. So what you really want to do is you want to think about these cues that I just shared with you, and you want to think, okay, um, you know, what is it that would probably bring the most people in? A lot of people look at video, and video can be wildly successful content to produce. It is great because it's visual, the movement draws people in on different types of social media, so it stops the scroll and it makes people look at you. It's really fantastic for so many reasons. It's engaging, it's memorable, people feel like they know you. There are all kinds of reasons why that content would be ideal to look into and develop. But is it the right kind of content for what it is that you're trying to provide? Recently, I was thinking about building more repetition for people who do not engage primarily in my private Facebook group. And so for me, one of the things that I was trying to do was build another type of content that would have that repetition that people would look forward to, because some people go to the Facebook group every single day and they participate. It has really great engagement. But some people hate Facebook and they decide not to be on it. So what am I doing with that portion of my audience who could be really valuable, but who are not seeing probably the most value from my community because they choose not to engage on Facebook? And what I decided to do was to take some inspiration from Tim Ferriss and from Jen and different folks, and to focus more on, here we go. I'm talking directly to you. And if you guys have comments, please let me know. I'm looking over here. Oh, hey, Kat. Hey, Saran. Sorry. Hey, oh, hey, guys. And so what you want to do is you want to think about, okay, is this the type of thing that's going to reach that particular audience for me and create a habit for them so that it's something that they're looking forward to? For me, I have some stuff that exists, some content that seems to work for a certain portion of my audience, but I didn't for this group that wasn't on Facebook. So I specifically wanted to create something for them. I got inspiration from Tim Ferriss and Jen with their summary posts. So Tim Ferriss has the 5 Bullet Fridays. There's another great one that is, I'm failing to remember, Alan, I think it's Alan Gannett. He wrote The Creative Curve. He has a Brunch with Alan that comes out on Sundays. And I look forward to these things. I actually look, as opposed to most of the things in my inbox, I actually look to certain newsletters that I get as the must reads. These are the things that I want to look at, right? And you want to create content that is something that people are looking forward to, and they build that into their lives. They make room for that in their lives. They look forward to it, and you deliver on it. Okay. So that's kind of what I'm talking about here. Depends on who your audience is and what it is that you're trying to achieve. Make sense? Yes? No? Any feedback on the Facebooks? Any feedback anywhere? All right.
Good stuff, KiKi. I'm interested in knowing, and you may already have this plan to tell us, but like, you are everywhere and you have built a huge community. And like most recently you celebrated your birthday. I mean, not your birthday, but like the birthday of Association Chat.
Yes.
And I thought it was brilliant, like the way that you did that. In fact, I saw someone else do that for their anniversary of their 5 years in business. And my 5 years in business came and went, and I didn't even know about it. And I was so bummed. I'm like, God, that was like such a good opportunity to bring my people along with me to celebrate and all that. And so anyway, if you want to talk a little bit about that and just some of the other things that you have done to make your brand as well, like as habit forming as it is for your people.
Thank you so much for asking that, because I do, the other two things that I go into for this particular presentation, talk about how to build habit, but they don't specifically talk about what Jen is asking about, and that is building community. And I mean, what's more habit forming, you guys, than building community? And you go where your friends are. We all go to where our friends are, and that is some of the power of community. And when you're looking at building community, you want to look at all kinds of things. Yes, you want to build the habit, and that's what we're talking about today. But part of that is building those relationships, right? And how do you build relationships? Well, actually, the thing is that in this day and age, we've gotten so far apart. It's amazing because we have the technology to connect nonstop all the time. We can talk, distance doesn't stop us from doing anything anymore, but we do. And oddly enough, we're seeing all of these things about social isolation. People feel more isolated. They feel like they can trust other people less. They have fewer close relationships in their lives. And that's because in our society right now, we're going through a weird shift where we have all of this technology. And while it encourages us and makes it super easy for us to create superficial relationships all over the world whenever we want it, unfortunately, it makes it super simple for us to not end up in those types of opportunities where we would regularly meet other people. And I mean everything from things like every organized religion is experiencing a decrease in how people come together. So that opportunity is not there all the time. People aren't going to church or synagogue or all these different things anymore. And Kat saying, love that you point out remaining visible and relevant and inviting to current followers and not at expense of focusing primarily on finding new. Build community and serve the community you build. Absolutely, Kat. Oh my gosh. Yeah, because, have you ever been part of a community and you've been part of it for a while and you feel like all the love is going to the new people, but it's not going to you? And you're like, oh my gosh, I've been here. I've been such a fan. I've been doing all of the things. And it's like, I might as well, I get more attention if I come back. That sounds petty, you guys. I know it does, but we're human. We are human, and that is the way that it works. I, work with a lot of associations, obviously, association chat. And one of the common things that I hear is I quit being a member of my association. I've been a member for 10 years and no one called me, And what's funny is I grew up in a household that had there was a lot of church going on. I'm from the Midwest. And so, and that was something that was a complaint that I heard there too. I've been a member of this church for 15 years and all it would have taken is a phone call. And so what that says to me is that no matter where you are, you could be in Southwest Missouri going to a church, you could belong to an online community, does not matter. You want to be thinking about relationships. We are building relationships with other human beings. And so it's really fantastic that we can build our funnels and we can have all this automation and look at all the fantastic things that we do. But in order to be really effective, you have to be able to build relationships with people. And that's what this is. Yes, we're talking about the psychology of forming habits with folks so that we can make it easier for people, that we've figured out a way that they remember us, we're top of mind, that we're part of their day. But part of that is building relationships. Jen asked me about celebrating the 10-year anniversary of Association Chat. That's unbelievable, 10 years. And I actually held off a little bit because I felt, would anybody come? If I and it's harder. I did have an in-person event to celebrate that was really well attended, and that was exciting. But people want to connect and feel like they belong and feel like that's how they identify each other as being part of a tribe. I talk about this in a little bit where I go and, I'm going to talk about the people, but it's so critical that you help to foster relationships between people within your community. If you have a brand and building a community is part of it, I understand some of you may have a brand and you don't have a community, but if community is a part of it, fostering those relationships with people, so very important. And that will create a bond that you'll be a part of and you'll be able to benefit because you helped bring those people together. And that's, I think, at its best, that is part of, that's part of being sort of a great honor in what we're all able to do. Because while we have the technology right now, to be able to foster all kinds of relationships, today we're living in a time when it's harder and harder. People don't automatically necessarily know how to build relationships between one another the way that they used to. And this is why you're seeing young people get married in gyms, because it's like one of the last remaining places that they can go as they grow into being an adult, where they're able to create a community. And so when we have these things, can you believe it? This is me getting on my soapbox. So, beware if you ask me questions, but when you are in the position where you have people who become part of your group, yes, you can sell them things, but you're also teaching them things. You're also teaching them how to build relationships between each other, ideally. And as a reward for that, they continue to come back and trust you, right? Because you are providing a safe place that's encouraging them to connect with others. I can go really deep on that for a long time, but let me go ahead and get back to sharing a little bit more about this particular story. Okay, so share my entire screen, share my application window. All right. And here we go. Sorry about that, guys. Okay. So we're going back and we're talking about the repeat. So how can you encourage engagement over and over? When you think about repetitive action, there is something in our brains, and you know that if you're trying to create a habit, like I'm going to work out, you don't want to work out once a week. You want to work out as many times as you possibly can and continue to do it because you want to make that thing a habit. Similarly, when we're thinking about creating a habit out of our brand with our members, with our users, with our customers, we want to think about, okay, what is going to encourage them to think about me, to think about my brand over and over again? And so you want to think about this in two ways. How can you think about the content that you're producing that you can reliably and regularly, frequently produce, where you're building trust, they know what to expect, and they can latch on to a cornerstone piece of content that you're creating? So that's on you. What type of content can you create regularly that you can get, loyal followers, where that's becoming part of their routine? And also, how can you encourage engagement from them? So what action can you get them to do that's going to be something that they can do over and over again that is easy? The reason it's important for them to be doing something is because whether it's a click, whether it's voting, whether it is a like, that's very passive, but the more you can get engagement to happen, the more their mind is doing some sort of positive vote in the direction of your brand, your content, and really essentially buying into you. And so you want to think about how to make that barrier of entry as low as possible. You want to make it super simple for them to engage. You also want to be creating that content that is showing up in front of them again and again so that they can build trust with you. This is how you can fast track trust. So repetition equals trust building. While you're creating habits for people, you are also building trustworthiness. You're giving them a reason to believe in you. And today that's more important than ever. Why? Because we see things like institutions that have historically had the people's trust for so long are being challenged right now. Entire religions are being challenged right now. So it's like, and whatever belief system you have, no matter what you may think, people in general have an issue with trust right now. And you can go and you can look at Pew, PEW research, that they have something called the Pew Trust Barometer. And you can go and see about how worldwide people's trust in their governments, people's trust in business, how they feel about things. And right now is kind of a low point for trust. We're not feeling too inclined to trust in things. We have things like, we hear people talking about fake news in different ways. We have deep fakes where you're looking at videos that seemingly somebody's saying something, but it's been doctored. So we have trust issues. On the same note, people are jumping into cars every day because they say Uber or Lyft, but they're cars of strangers. So somehow we're able to go and stay in strangers' homes via Airbnb or whatever. But we're having more issues with trusting each other. And certainly when we're trying to build up trust with somebody else, when we don't know them very well, one of the ways that we can do that, one of the cues that we've been given as human beings from the beginning of time, is repetition. If I see, so-and-so eat that berry off of that tree and they don't die, and I see more people from the tribe eat the berries off of that tree and they don't die, I'll probably be safe. If I eat the berry off of that tree, I probably won't die. And we have been engineered to make decisions this way. This is a shortcut to longer time, trust building. So if you want to make a shortcut to that, repetition, frequent repetition. That's why if you show up in somebody's email box, you say, I'm going to be there every Monday with your newsletter, and you show up every Monday with your newsletter, there's going to be trust that's built just based on that fact alone. Jen showing up with her daily flash briefings, that's huge. Daily is so much better than even weekly, because the more often you do it, and you have to actually show up for it, but the more often you do a thing, then the more trust that people put into you, and the more frequently they see it, the more engagement they have, and that ends up building your audience faster. So there are lots of reasons why repetition is good, but you must be able to keep up with it. So if that means one really great post a month, go with that. But and be honest with yourself. But trust building and repetition is important for building habit. So while you're creating these habits and you're building trust, and I have examples over here. If you're watching this, hopefully you can see I have Jen, an example from Jen. Every Tuesday, she has these themes, and every Tuesday it's the technology and apps creating opportunities, Taco Tuesday, which is brilliant. But that's going to be there, whether or not you actually add anything. It's a chance to. And sometimes I'll think about when is that feedback day? There's a feedback day. I think it's Wednesday, I'm not sure, but there's a feedback day and I need to wait until she has feedback day. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to ask my question. That's how you want people to think. You want them to anticipate this content that's coming out as their moment to be able to engage and get something from that. Tim Ferriss, I mentioned his 5-Bullet Friday. I look forward to that every week. I love his blog, or I love his podcast. It's super long though. It's a long form podcast, which I usually enjoy, but I don't always have time to listen to it. And so I always look forward to the 5 Bullet Friday though, because it's consumable, it's easy, I can access it from anywhere. So for me, this gives me an entry point to Tim Ferriss's content where I might like something else, but I much more am able to engage with something like this. Sunday Brunch with Alan, that's the one that I mentioned, Alan Gannett, before. And then I have my own association chat. And this was an example every Tuesday, and this is how association chat started, was with a tweet chat every Tuesday at 2. And so this was an example from one of the things I posted, but it was questioning orthodoxy for association chat, which seems very cerebral and probably more complicated than a tweet chat needs to be. So the third thing that you want to think about with all of this is the people. We talked about before, people want to be where their people are, right? And so if you have a group of power users, power customers, your biggest super fans, your advocates, are you empowering them to be able to invite their friends, to invite people like them, to help spread the love, so to speak? Just because they're super users or just because they love you so much that they show up all the time, they're not always thinking about ways to promote you. They're not always thinking about ways to promote your brand. But what would they, if they could, if you gave them some love, if you gave them a t-shirt, if you gave them a sticker, if you encouraged them to, if you did a challenge, but they had to have a partner, so they should invite a friend to do it with them. What could you do to encourage them to bring their friends to your thing, your community, your brand, your product, whatever? What could you do to encourage them to bring in their friends into that? And it might be as simple as, some sort of campaign on social media where you're tagging your friends. You see that all the time with like different types of products. I had, and this is it's a purposefully grainy picture because it was from, not really purposefully, but it was taken from like a Kodak and then posted to social media. So it's like many times pixelated and probably filtered to all kinds of degrees. But this was a picture of part of the group that was at the 10th reunion. I posted this around to show people, visually show people, this is your tribe. This is part of being a part of association chat, is you're part of a larger group. So you visually want to be reminding people, you are part of a tribe. This is a tribe. This is how you can feel like you belong. So how do you do it? Well, one is ask. You don't get if you don't ask. You hear that a lot from fundraisers, but it's very, very true. You don't get if you don't ask. One of the things, one of the pieces of research that came out of the American Society of Association Executives did this wonderful research on what causes people to remain members, right, of associations. And it's the direct ask. You have to ask them to be a member. Same thing with volunteering. The direct ask is extremely powerful. So if you don't ask your power users or your greatest fans to share your content, if you don't ask them to invite a friend, if you don't ask them and say, hey, great people like you are a part of this group, but I bet you know more. Who else is in your community that you think, yeah, so-and-so needs to be a part of association chat? You need to get out there and ask them to be a part of this, and encourage them to ask, because a lot of times they're not thinking about it until you ask them. And then how many touches does it take? I think we're up to like 12 or 13 touches before somebody, your message actually gets through. You have to ask and ask and ask and remind. I have a Patreon page for people who want to support association chat in a way that's not like as expensive as a sponsorship or something like that. And I fail at this constantly because I don't ask enough. I feel like I'm asking all the time. And I tried really hard to do that recently. In the past like 6 months, I've tried to get better about it. And I just ran into someone the other day at a conference, and she said, you have that Patreon, and I keep thinking, I need to do that. And I just saw a reminder the other day, and I thought, yes, I need to do that. This is how we live, while your brand may be front and center for you constantly, even if you feel like you're peppering people with stuff all the time, a lot of times that's not getting through. So if you feel like you're asking enough, hey guys, reminder, like, subscribe, and share, you need to do that occasionally, because otherwise people won't think to do it, right? So you can think about it with your videos or your audio or your content. But I like to just remind people, even at the end of my newsletters, that they can become Patreon patrons. It's a small thing, but it's surprising to me that more people don't even realize I have one, and it takes a while to get through sometimes. You also want to make it easy for people. What's the easiest way for them to invite their friends? A great example that I saw of this recently, and it's again from Pew. Pew wants people, they want people to share their content. So they create infographics, and they put all of their content or all of their identification information with their infographic. And then they provide things like embed codes, because they want you to share it. They want you to take it. They want you to add it into your posts. They just want to make sure that they get the credit for it, but they do want you to share. They don't make it super hard for you to share things. And so make it easy. If you're creating something that you want your customers or your audience to be able to share so that they'll bring their friends in, make it easy so that they have the embed code, or they have the, you can get a plugin that will help you to share to social media. Make sure that it's easy for them to share so that they can bring more people to your brand. All right. And then you also want to inspire them to do it. So how do you inspire people and encourage them to invite their friends? Well, what types of things encourage them to do it? Like, maybe there's a way that they can raise their friends up. Is there a certain week of the month where it's like, thank a friend week? You have to listen to Jen's flash briefing so you can find out which days you can do that. Is there something you can do? We just had Thanksgiving as of this recording, and is there a way that you can make it something where you're thanking a friend on your site, and that's encouraging people to nominate their friend as somebody that's been a great friend? These are just examples I'm throwing out there, but the idea with step 3 here is to inspire them to want to create some kind of matchmaking going on between you and their friends. The reason why is because if they're such great fans of yours and they like the stuff that you're doing, they probably are friends with people who will also like the stuff that you're doing and will be encouraged to continue to participate and become loyal followers because they're already connected to people who are. All right, so gosh, this goes by fast. 3 ways to create a habit-forming brand that we've talked about so far. We've talked about the cue, different types of cues that you have, what types of content will encourage repeat actions and visits. We've talked about the repeat. What can you do to create this repetition and behavior for your customers and for you? And then we've talked about the people, the importance of the people. How can you encourage and inspire your power users and your best advocates to invite their friends, because they're probably going to be amazing for your brand? All right, so with that, I want to take any questions, if you have questions. Stage. Yep. Oh, Jen, I think you're on mute.
Thank you.
Yay. Yes.
We've got, I love that Alita said that, people are always so afraid to ask, but the worst that someone can do is tell you no. right?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And you know, I hate asking and I know it's supposed to take so many times. I know that it's supposed to be we're supposed to beat people over the head with it. And yet I am still like I'm still trying to force myself, and I'm like, "Oh gosh, here goes another post," like people are going to hate me. And then it's surprising to me that I'll run into people and it's like I've been posting on every channel I have, and maybe it's like they only tune into one type of channel regularly, and that's where I get them. Like LinkedIn. LinkedIn's a great example. I started testing some content last week. It was this video content, and I'm like, this is the same kind of stuff I post elsewhere. So I'm not really expecting any big difference, but why not? So and I tested it and I was wrong. I was so wrong. It got this wild amount of response, like, oh my gosh, so this stuff's going to do so much better over here than it is on my Facebook.
Do you, but just off topic a little bit, but do you
Yeah.
have a LinkedIn live stream yet?
I don't.
I don't either, but it'll be really great for you when that
Oh
comes
my
along.
gosh,
I've a,
it would be so perfect. I know.
it drives me nuts. The key with them is that they ask you for your most recent live stream when you apply. And what I've heard is that, like, there needs to be a really good hook, even if that isn't what you plan on making your show down the road.
Yeah.
Have that sample be a really good hook. Plus, they also need to see consistent live streams like every Wednesday or every whatever on your page when you submit. So that's on my list of 2020 things to do because I am just so annoyed at them. Okay.
That just gave me a really good idea. I just have to give you really
Yes.
like credit right now because one of the things with associations is the workforce issue, and that would tie in so well with LinkedIn, LinkedIn content.
Yeah.
So like if that was a focus, because that's like Workforce Wednesdays is something that I was thinking about. So knowing that, Jen, you just gave me so much
So
helpful
what are the top, what do they talk about on Workforce Wednesdays?
So on Workforce, well, what we will talk about.
Yeah.
What we would talk about would be things like what are associations doing right now, examples of what associations are doing right now to reach people in their industries. So I've been doing a lot. I just did an interview with Jane Oates, who's the president of something called Working Nation. And Working Nation is totally focused on solving this problem of the skills gap and on creating jobs for people in different industries. And we have, because of technology changing so quickly, people just even no matter how much education you have right now, you're going to have to keep learning. You're going to have to get reskilled and upskill later down the road. And so what Working Nation does is they collect stories of how companies and institutions and associations are working to supply an answer for that gap and supply training or education or program where people will continue to move up in the workforce. And so I think that featuring stories like that, I interviewed
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
I mean, I love it. So yeah, do your Wednesday show, like do 4 of them and then do your LinkedIn and make like the hook like super juicy. But I mean, they'd be crazy to not let you do that live stream. Like that's perfect for LinkedIn,
But see, I didn't know that was like the hook I thought, what would be something that I could do regularly, but I didn't think about it until you put it that way, that LinkedIn would probably be perfect for something like Workforce Wednesdays, which was something on my content calendar, but I was thinking about as like an article or a blog post. Alita, the last slide with the resource links disappeared too quickly to see. I will send the PDF to Jen, and also if you want to sign up for my mailing list, I'll send that out, or whatever. I mean, what's the best way to get to them?
I'm gonna put it right there.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit.ly link, but I mean, if you signed up to association chat, you might get other stuff that you don't want. So, this will keep it separate. And then Isabel, you said, I watched Gary Vee engage a young artist and he looked at the artist's Instagram. He told the artist to post 4 times a day. He told him to engage more. Yeah. And I spoke recently to a person responsible for fundraising for a university. They said that they always ask for $1,000 gift through email. Decided this year to ask for $1,500 on a trial to see how it was received, and 44% responded with the increased giving, which is huge. And had they not asked, they would have lost a lot of financial support. That's such a great example. When I worked a long time ago, I worked at the American Red Cross National Headquarters, and Bonnie McElvain Hunter, who is just this force to be reckoned with, fantastic fundraiser. And that's what she did for the American Red Cross, and just something else. She walked in and she's like, if you don't ask, you won't get. You won't get if you don't ask. And she really just over and over and over would say that. And I'm really, really bad at it. And I feel like I would be worse if I hadn't heard her give that advice a long time ago, because I even have a thing over here that says you don't get if you don't ask, to remind me to ask, because there's always something.
My background is in fundraising, and I started at the Muscular Dystrophy Association.
Oh my gosh.
And it's so funny because one of my greatest professional lessons ever was, and I can't remember the person's name, but he walked in, he was teaching us something, and he said, why do people give to charity? So I ask you, why does somebody give to charity?
I don't know. Why?
Because they're asked.
Yes.
Period.
Yeah.
And it was just like such a duh. And I was like, yeah, right. And so exactly what you say, you could apply that to, for-profit, nonprofit, whatever. Like, you got to ask. And I think also specifically as marketers and what we do, or having online business and trying to build this online thing, is that we do want to be careful to not be smarmy, too selly, all that.
Oh, yeah.
But Guy Kawasaki did the coolest, and I can hear my echo, but my earbuds broke. So I'll put those in again in a second. But it was at Social Media Marketing World, and he said, look, and he showed on his Facebook profile that he posted the same, not just that he posts 7 times a day. He was posting like pretty much the same 2 things many, many, many times a day. But people only saw it if he was lucky 1 time, because people don't see all your stuff.
Yeah.
So we have to wash our heads clean of thinking that we're like saturating too much, because you're just not. And the same goes for email, people. Like, we're always afraid of like annoying people on email, but like you gotta email, you gotta ask. And it's just that simple.
It's not going to be too much. So this is kind of similar to that, but also kind of unrelated.
That's all right.
That is so back in 2012, worst year. I had the worst year ever, just horrible personally for me. It was like, whatever, really dramatic. And one of the things that I learned, kind of climbing out of that, how you have your times in life that some are better than others. One of the things I discovered as I was kind of climbing out of that was that I had lost my curiosity. Part of the problem, I think part of the reason I was so depressed, was because I was assuming a lot, and I wasn't inquisitive enough. So I wasn't digging into things. I was just, which life can be pretty flavorless if you think that you have, where things are going. Mm-hmm. And so what I did was I started asking more questions than what felt comfortable. So what I would do is, if I went somewhere, and in the beginning I couldn't even, it was like, oh my gosh, asking one question. And now it's so funny because interviewing people, like I ask questions, all I have is questions. Got really good at it. But in the beginning, it would be like, okay, I'm going to ask at least three questions of every person that I'm introduced to. And even if it was uncomfortable, even if I didn't like it, even if they were dumb or whatever, I was going to do it. And I forced myself to do it. And what I discovered is that life is so much full of flavor. You get so much more that you don't expect. And this, my friends, is where we're headed with when we post things, when we feel like we're reaching out and, well, that email didn't get that many clicks. It didn't get that much response. Maybe nobody cares. Maybe nobody's listening. Maybe nobody's paying attention. But you have to keep doing it to get to some of the good stuff, right?
Right.
And so ask more questions and keep trying to connect, because we don't have enough people who are truly trying to connect these days as maybe what we saw in the past. I mean, really go for that real meaningful connection.
Yeah. And that just reminded me, speaking of connection, it's someone sent me, I mean, it's happened more than once, but someone sent me a message on Instagram. You know, you can do the voice messages on all the platforms now. I think LinkedIn even too, you could send a voice message. And if you listen to it is such high quality audio. It's like better than the telephone. It's, and the person's voice was so warm and so rich.
Yeah.
And she was reaching out to me to be like, hey, Jen, I haven't seen you in a while. Just wanted to tell you whatever it was that she said. But it was like an arrow to my heart. I was just like, wow, I was in love with her in that moment. And I was in love, you know, it was a true human connection, even though it was not somebody, it was a business kind of a thing, but I'm just saying it's just like you said, it's harder now, ironically, to build true relationships, even though we have all these things, you know? And so,
well, if you think, I mean, it's like even going to the grocery store, you know, I was looking at, here we have, I'm in Alexandria, Virginia, outside of DC. And here we have Instacart, and I use Instacart sometimes, like a lot more than I should.
Yeah, me too.
My argument is that it pays off because I don't see stuff that I don't need to buy. And so, but when I went to the grocery store recently, I noticed that like about half the people I was running into, they were Instacart people. They don't stop. They're not there to make, you know, relationships. But, you know, back in the day when I that was a place where you could meet people. You could strike up conversations with your neighbors because you would all be at the store. And now it's all avatars for other people. These are all representatives of other people buying their groceries, you know. And
oh my God, I have never thought about it like that. And that gives me the willies, but you are you are right.
Well, it was like I was looking over, and the person next to me wasn't a real person. They were a person representing another person at home waiting for their eggs, you know? And like, so there's that person, everybody's Instacart, and how can you build a relationship when they're not really them? They're representing somebody else. And it's just,
that just blew my mind. I had not thought about those people as avatars for other people, but they are. And that is just wild. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, we have the opportunity though. We have the opportunity to think about how that's going on for everybody right now. And we can, with our brands, with our technology, that's the opportunity, is that we can use that to build and foster relationships. And if we're able to do that successfully, that's so meaningful. You build so much loyalty that way that it does become habit forming, because people come back to where their people are.
Yes. And like you said, it's an honor to play that role, to connect people with other people, not just us to them, but them to them, right? Like that, you know, that is an honor to be able to do that.
So many people because of Front Row. I mean, the role that you play is so important, and it's valuable because all of us are growing. We're all we're becoming more educated and informed as we go along. We're all growing in our businesses and growing in our understanding. But I have to say that if I ceased being an entrepreneur today and decided that I was going to instead I was going to, get a regular 9 to 5 gig and all of that stuff, I wouldn't want to leave Front Row, right? And the reason why is because I get so much value out of the other people. I've formed relationships with other people and their friendships, and I get so much value out of the content there that would keep me coming back, and that's kind of incredible.
Well, thank you for that. I don't want the time to get away without you telling us. I don't have a link for your podcast.
Oh, yes.
And you have a great podcast. What is that link?
So it's Association Chat's the name, and you can find it on Apple Podcasts. You can find it on, all of the usual Stitcher and Google Play and all of the stuff. So if you look for Association Chat, I also have a flash briefing, but you guys,
yes,
it's a weekly flash briefing right now because I can't keep up with Jen and her Speed Demon flash briefing ways. And, but it is weekly. And if you have any interest in associations and nonprofits, it's like the best. So,
yeah. So who can you tell our viewers who are live now and our replay viewers, like who your ideal client is in case they want to share Association Chat with their people? Because we all know people who need you.
So associations, there's an association for everything. And my specialty is associations and nonprofits. My consulting work is for associations and nonprofits. I do some work for profits, which is for amplified growth. But my ideal client is really an association or nonprofit that is looking for help with digital strategy, or they're looking for a speaker to come in. I do a lot of speaking, and it's mostly these days about trust building. And so if you want somebody to come in and talk to you about trust or do even a discussion similar to what we had today, then feel free to reach out. And I'm at KiKi L'Italien on Twitter, Instagram, and you can definitely begin to type my name in and easily find me on just about everything else. So there aren't that many KiKi L'Italiens, so...
I wanted to play the KiKi song to intro you, but I knew we would get blocked by get blocked by Facebook. But I'm gonna KiKi, do you love me?
Right. Yeah.
I've already forgotten the words.
I know.
So you never leave. I do remember that part.
I jumped out of the car. I had my husband driving, and I had to do that. The KiKi.
How could you? Of course you had to do it. I did it. My name's not KiKi, but you had to take the KiKi challenge, please.
I totally did.
All right. Well, I just so appreciate you sharing this rich information with us. A lot of it really just, I needed to hear a lot of that again, actually. And so, and to be reminded that, to ask, we got to ask and we need to be repetitive and good stuff, just really good stuff.
Thank you.
You guys, it's associationchat.com. Tweet KiKi your love and tell her how awesome she was today. She's very active on Twitter. Oh, you still have your Twitter chat, your actual Twitter chat?
Oh, yeah. So every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern time. And you guys, it's the most pornographic sounding hashtag ever. Because when you shorten association, it's ASSN.
Oh, ass chat.
So ASSNCHAT. So ASSN chat.
That's the best.
But I want to challenge all of you guys. If you are listening right now, if you're listening to this later, whenever you're listening to this, then yes, tweet me and use ASSN chat as the hashtag. But let me know what you're asking. You're going to ask something. Yeah. In addition to what you would normally ask, what are you doing to ask one more time than you normally would today?
All right, give me an example.
Okay, like today, I am going to send out one more email asking for people to register than I normally would have. Or I'm going to post one more time about that giveaway than I normally would.
Yes, I love it. You guys. Tweet KiKi, but also put it in the comments here. Hashtag replay if you're watching the replay, and KiKi will circle back around and chat with you.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank
All
you,
right.
guys.
Thank you so much. We'll see you in the front row.
All right. See you.
Bye, guys.